evening and welcome to BronxTalk. As you might know, I've been hosting this program for 3 decades, and in that time, one of the things I hear, especially when it comes to gangs and youth crime, if only we had more productive activities for our young people. Or, what are my kids going to do after school? Well, according to the city's website, there are 900 after-school programs, which sounds like a good number. But the fact is, there are more than 1.1 million K-12 students in our 1,800 schools. And DOJ numbers say that at least 30% of those are cared for by older siblings during after-school hours. Tonight, we're going to talk further about the importance of these programs and hopefully help you find a way to connect and get all our Bronx youngsters involved in productive after-school programs. So please join me in welcoming the Executive Director of the Police Athletic League. It is Carlos Velasquez. Nice to see you, sir.
Nice to be here.
Thank you for joining us. And the Director of Policy and Advocacy for United Neighborhood Houses, which is the umbrella organization for 9 Bronx community centers. It is Kate Connoly. Ms. Connoly, nice to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Velasquez, let's just get started. The PAL has a wondrous, a lovely, incredible 100-year history.
110 years this year.
I was not there at the beginning. So just tell us a little bit about how it got started and why it's still thriving in this day and age.
Definitely. So the PAL was started by the police commissioner in 1914 as an opportunity to keep young people safe, engage with law enforcement, and giving them an opportunity to just be kids in New York City. It started on the Lower East Side. And over the years, it's continued with that same premise of keeping young people safe, connecting them with law enforcement, giving them the opportunity to be mentored, but the opportunity to dream and just have fun and be a kid. So we continue that legacy from 1914 of keeping our young people involved, keeping them busy, but also partnering with law enforcement to make sure that there's a relationship being built. But I think in this time of our world is really about our young people feeling safe, and safety is paramount for them.
And that's the way you do it. We will talk about the relationship with the NYPD, but just talk about what's been the challenge to keep it going. In other words, there are many organizations, many concepts that have gone like this, but you've been able to keep it going, and now you said there are 27 centers all told, 5 in the Bronx. What keeps it going? I mean, financially, is it foundation work with the NYPD? How does it work?
I think it's a lot of support from a lot of people, from your everyday New Yorker to a very motivated board of trustees and board of directors who continue to help fund and raise money for the organization, and support from city and state funding to keep the program going. So I think one thing that PAL has continued to do is to change with the times. So keep their tradition and their legacy, but also understand
what is that change? We'll get to you in a second about UNH, but I'm very curious.
I think it's, coming out of the pandemic, we have our young people who are now have different needs, where academics are very important, but their mental health is very important, and a place where they can socialize, a place where they feel that they are learning, that they're feeling accepted. I think they deal with a lot of challenges in their everyday life, and we're stepping up to meet those challenges.
And part of that, I'm just assuming, is counselors who understand these things. I mean, it doesn't just happen like, okay, now we're going to treat them better. You've got to really have the know-how.
Definitely, and counselors who've grown up in the program, and I think that's part of a lot of success when it comes to after school, is the product of after school coming back and being that role model and investing in their community.
Ms. Connoly, let's just talk about UNH. It's different from the PAL, and I've deliberately brought 2 different types of after-school leaders in the room here. Just tell me a little bit about UNH. I mentioned it's an umbrella agency. Some of my favorite community centers are UNH programs, but just talk about what it is and how it operates.
Definitely. So UNH is a policy and social change organization that represents 46 settlement houses throughout New York State that serve New Yorkers of all ages, from preschool to after school to our older adults.
And in terms of Hanley, you're the Director of Policy and Advocacy. Clearly, the advocacy means you've got to raise funds.
Yes.
And talk a little bit about where we're at now. Let's put it this way. I have a friend who's a news person, and he said to me, every time I cover a story, he's a TV news person, he said, every time I cover a story of kids misbehaving, or, that horrible story on the number 4 train where there were kids fighting with each other and a gun was pulled and all of a sudden an innocent person was dead. He said, every time I see that, I want to know what after-school programs didn't they get, what Little League didn't they play in, et cetera, et cetera. Talk to me about the task of delivering those kinds of programs to grassroots, to where people live and who they are.
Yeah, so there are so many well-documented benefits to after school, and I'm sure we'll get into more of them, but improved academic achievement, opportunities for socialization with your peers, and in the settlement house model, it's a gateway to other resources and opportunities in the local community. And honestly, for families, it's really important to know that your young person has a safe space to be in the after-school hours. But right now, our after-school programs are in danger.
And how endangered?
Very in danger, Gary.
Really?
So in the upcoming school year, 3,538 after-school program slots are set to be cut. That's over 3,500 young people who have no after school in the upcoming school year.
Now, the PAL programs are free-based, right?
They're all free.
They're free, but are your after-school programs, is there a fee for them, or it's paid for through this whole budgetary thing?
So after school can look like many things, and the settlement house programs, they are all free programs, and these over 3,500 program slots are all free. So unfortunately, that would mean that families would now be burdened with paying these costs if they want to maintain after school programming.
Yeah, let's just talk about some of the programs. I was at one of your settlement houses at the Marshall Montfield Community Center, so we have some pictures of some of the activities. And I want people to look at this and say, wow, would this be good for my child? So just talk about some of the activities, and are they consistent? I mean, I realize we've got one here, but are they consistent throughout, or does everybody kind of custom make the programs?
So the programs are largely designed by DYCD, and there are certain tenets that every program needs to maintain. However, there is a little bit of flexibility amongst organizations to tailor it to your population. So if you have a population of young people that is very interested in robotics, you can tailor it to meet their needs. Same with dance and art. And I think that's really the beauty of after-school programming in New York City, is that you can find a program that works for your young person.
And how do they get to UNH to do that? I mean, we're seeing pictures. There's karate there and self-defense classes. You can put up more. There's plenty of good stuff to look at. Go ahead.
So UNH doesn't have any programs ourselves, but our member organizations do. And I would encourage folks to reach out to the various settlement houses in the Bronx, or PAL, or any of the other community-based organizations that are doing this work, to ask about the after-school programs that are available.
Let's talk about the NYPD and what the issues are in the streets that you take seriously, and there's interaction with police officers. Talk about how that operates.
Definitely. I mean, all the issues that affect our communities are important to us, because it's us keeping the pulse of what's going on in the communities that we're based in. Our relationship with NYPD is really about, again, creating a familiar space for both the young people and for the officers to get to know each other. So that can look like anything from engaging in activities together, whether it's a basketball night, or whether it's playing video games or cooking classes, to having NYPD come in and do education around gun safety or around violence in their neighborhood. So it's really about creating an opportunity for the community to feel where they have a pathway to have these conversations, and also for our young people to feel they have a voice when it comes to safety in their community.
Cops volunteer?
Cops volunteer, yes, they do.
And, I have a number of friends who are police officers. they love it, right? In other words, it's almost like the best part of their job, even though it's not the job. What's the impact of that? And then I want to ask you also about the impact. What's the impact of that? Do you see a change? Do things happen?
I think at the very basic level is just an understanding that, a young person is going through a lot of things in their life, and they have feelings about what goes on in their community. And for the officers who come in, it's about the young people understanding they have a job to do and they're trying to keep them safe. But also it grows to a relationship where if there is an incident, if there's something where a young person or a family needs support, they know they have someone to go to, or they have a familiar face that they can engage with. So we really work hard with our partners at NYPD, and they're great at our centers and they're great with our young people. And you see the young people become comfortable around the officers, where it's not where they're just authority in their life, but just another community member who's trying to keep their community safe.
In other words, we're all on the same page. Yeah. We've had this dialogue 100 times. Mm-hmm. Ms. Connoly, let's just talk about what the kids get out of it. Is there a way to measure, this is working, this is not working? Do we simply look at crime numbers and say, well, youth crime is down, so we must be doing better? How do you evaluate to say if we're doing a good job or not?
So over the years, there have been many studies around the benefits of after school. Crime prevention is one benefit, but there's also improvements in academics, in peer socialization. In this world after COVID, it's really important to give youth a safe space to be with each other, to be with trusted adults, and have access to pathways that they might not otherwise get.
How do you choose a program for your child? And I'm hoping people are going to be inspired and say, you know what, I'm going to take my child, my son or my daughter to a program. But then how do you know if it's the right one, or how should a parent evaluate whether it's for my child and actually it's efficiently run?
I think there is no wrong way to decide if a program works for you and your child. Many programs happen at schools, so that might be a convenience factor. Some of them have a specific focus, whether it be college readiness, whether it be a career pathway. So I think it's really about deciding what is going to engage and be good for your young person and what is convenient for your family.
I think for a lot of kids, they don't play sports, maybe they feel like they don't belong, and then all of a sudden they say, well, everybody's playing basketball, it's not really my thing. And but we just showed some pictures. There are opportunities here that are outside that realm. I mean, it's cooking, and there's we saw some academic stuff. One of the things that I've talked to Mr. Velasquez, I've talked to a number of people who've been on the show here, is filling in the gaps of what they don't get in school. Mm-hmm. And that, I know when I was in school, it was art and music was all part of it. I'm just going to make the assumption this is also one of the missions that you at the PAL and of course at UNH are trying to do.
Definitely. One of the things that people sometimes aren't aware is that the Police Athletic League is a lot more than athletics. We have hydroponic farming, we have STEM classes, robotics classes, art classes, music classes. It's really an opportunity to get young people engaged and to find a passion or find the opportunity to find something that they connect with. So it's really about creating a space where young people can advocate for what they want, a space for young people to try new things, but also try new things in a safe space.
Do the leaders, are they trained well enough to recognize, because there could be individuals who come in, mom told me I gotta be here, so I'm here, and then they kind of sulk or they don't really participate, and that's the kind of nurturing a youngster needs to bring them out of it.
Yeah, I think it's all about, as our young people get older, they vote with their feet. So if you give them an opportunity where they feel welcome and they feel like it's their home, they're going to come in and they're going to participate. So it's about building that relationship and not taking the relationship part for granted. Mm-hmm.
What about staff? How do you again, for parents, how do they evaluate staff? How do they take a look and say, well, wait a minute, is this working out? What should you look for?
Yeah, I think exactly as Carlos was saying, it's about having staff that are responsive and engaging well with your young people. I know in the settlement house model, a really important factor is having and hiring people from the community. And in fact, a lot of our local settlement houses, they have staff that were participants previously.
This is what Mr. Velasquez was saying as well, yeah. So it's almost like you're breeding the next generation, so to speak. In terms of the differences between, so let's see, I was just looking at a list. We do have a list of the Bronx settlement houses, but let's say, so you've got a Bronx House on Pelham Parkway South, Bronx Works, East Side House Settlement, which is further south. Here we've got the list. So for people who want to, maybe make a choice, they can look and see which is in their neighborhood. Do they have enough freedom to be able to custom make their program for that community? In other words, the people down at East Side House may need something different that the one at Bronx House on Pelham Parkway.
So every settlement house, and I'm sure every organization, they do their best to tailor their programming to local needs. There are some constraints based on funding, both the amount and the types of contracts, but organizations do try really hard to tailor their programming to meet the exact needs of the people that are coming through their doors.
If you saw my face change, it's because you mentioned that funding again. What is the status of it? I mean, if I were to interview, and I've interviewed many elected officials sitting in that seat, and I say, what's your priority? They're going to say, oh, we want money for our after-school programs for our kids, and they say that. And then, of course, somehow we end up with policy advocates who are saying, really? I mean, we're fighting for it. What's next? How do we do that? How do we get all those people to vote yes the next time the budget line comes up, or get the budget line to move up on the priority scale?
So really, it's public pressure. We're asking everybody to call 311 and tell Mayor Adams to restore the funding to after-school programs. It's really important, and if we don't make this happen, over 3,000 young people are going to lose after-school come September.
And where does the employment program, the summer youth employment program, fit in this? Is that all part of the same thing, or is that somehow seen as as a separate thing, and that gets funded or gets dealt with separately? To me, it's all the same thing, but that's me.
You're right. There is a lot of crossover, and there are students that go from one program to the other. For this coming summer and for other summers, Summer Youth Employment Program is currently safe with funding, and so we're not as worried about it right now as we are about after school.
Let's talk facility a little bit. It's very easy to say we're going to run a cooking program, we're going to run a music program, we're going to do a STEM program, we're going to do all these other wonderful things. STEM cooking program needs a kitchen. STEM program needs computers. Our music programs needs instruments. What do? You buy them. You have them in certain centers, do certain things. I mean, just talk about it as the director. How do you make that happen?
Definitely, it's you work with what you have and you improvise and you look for.
Is this ever a Bronx message?
and our young people are so resilient, and they want to do so much that they're willing to challenge themselves to learn things, and sometimes not the best funded programs or with the best resources, but we depend a lot on investment. And I really, say that with an importance of we have to invest in our young people. So investment from our donors, investment from city agencies, investment from foundations and corporations. That's how we get things done, and that's how we get the resources that we need. So it's a lot of investment in our city that gets these things moving. And, as we hear, we need more investment now just to do the bare minimum, and we continue fighting the good fight for that.
And, the pictures we just saw of the range of programs, there were kids fencing and volleyball and all kinds of cooking and everything else. It's rather impressive. And what about staff? You say staff comes from people who were part of the program.
Yeah, we have a wide variety of staff who are just passionate about the work that we are doing, but we have a number of staff who have grown up in the programs. We actually have programs that at a very young age, we are teaching our young people how to mentor the younger kids in the programs so they take ownership of it. So I have directors of centers who were participants at one time at the PAL. I was a participant of PAL basketball programs when I was a kid, and now I'm the executive director, right? There's
a news story in and of itself, a news feature.
Right, so it's the opportunity for young people to take responsibility for their community.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you, I will ask you both, you can start. Let's just talk about positive stories. And what do you hear from, I realize you're doing policy and advocacy, but what do you hear from people in the after-school programs that gets you inspired to say, you know what, it's not just Gary talking on TV, it actually works?
So I do the policy stuff, but I speak with our youth workers almost every single day, and they are the ones that keep me going. They are so dedicated to making these programs work for our young people, making sure that they are engaged, that they are cared for, that they know someone believes in them. And seeing those young people then grow up and become staff members of these organizations and continue this work with limited resources is inspiring. It shouldn't be that way, but it's inspiring.
Would you, if you had more, again, there's limited resources, we don't want to keep harping on it, but if you had more resources, what would you do? Expand programs, more facilities? I mean, let's imagine something great or greater.
I love that. No, so I think our first priority would be to make sure that workers are making a viable wage.
Oh, that's an important, we didn't bring that up. We're talking about running programs. But if you want talented people, that's a good start.
Exactly.
Are those set, I don't know if it's different for each of you, are those set by the individual centers, or is that set by the city or whoever funds the programs?
So it's based on a few different factors. There's a minimum wage, there's the contract amount set by the city, and then there are wages set by each individual organization.
By the organizations. And what about for you? Is it the same kind of thing?
It's the same, and it's challenging, right? I think that, especially in this market where you can go work in retail and make more than working in a child care program, depending where you are, and you can get more hours. So it's a difficult balance to make sure you're paying a good wage, but you're also getting the resources you need to get the young people into the space. You're keeping up with facilities. So there's a lot of juggling when it comes to making sure that young people have what they need, but also the staff that you need to give young people what they need.
And I didn't ask you the question that I had asked her. Good stories. Talk to me about something you saw that made you say, oh, well, this is what we do. This is why we do it.
Yeah, I think it's just when you see the young people investing in their communities and taking ownership of their centers. I always say, community-based organizations have to be based in the community and have the pulse of that community. So seeing our youth councils or seeing our older youth engaging with younger youth and mentoring them, and seeing the community come into the center and just be a part of what's going on. It speaks volumes in terms of this concept of after school, which is childcare, giving, many years ago and still to this day, parents the opportunity to stay at work and have their kids in safe spaces.
Much more important today than it used to be, I'm sure. It's just very interesting to me, and sitting in this seat for all these years, and I feel like so many in the Bronx are unrecognized, and we have so many great communities, and I talk about it all the time, and people out there don't know who we are. To me, in the Police Athletic League centers and in UNH centers, that's really where you see what the Bronx is. These are our kids, and these are real activities. It's not like pretend or anything like that. All right, let's start to wrap it up. If we can put up the UNH Bronx settlement houses again. Just talk about, make the sale. Tell people we got to get our kids in after-school programs. Let's do it.
Yeah. So
let's see. There's. Go ahead. You do it first, and then I'm gonna list all the centers. Go ahead.
Well, I do want to make one final plug for everyone to call 311 and make sure that we're restoring this after-school funding. Unfortunately, many of the organizations that you're about to list off that are UNH members are set to have programs cut or fully terminated.
I can't even imagine that. And I can't
It's
even
true.
imagine being a director of a program that you've developed and that you know works,
Yeah.
and then you have to say to the parents and everybody, it's not happening.
No, it's
you
true.
know? I want to just list them all: Bronx House, Bronx Works, East Side House Settlement, Kingsbridge Heights Community Center, Marshall Montefiore Community Center, New Settlement, Riverdale Neighborhood House, Southeast Bronx Neighborhood Centers, and WETCO, Women's Housing and Economic Development. Just look them up. If there's one in your neighborhood, check them out, because they want you, they need you, and really you need them. How about that? And let's talk about the PAL. Now, you have a centers where? We were talking about it beforehand.
Yeah, we have 5 centers in the Bronx. We have the Fordham section of the Bronx on Webster Avenue and 183rd Street. We have our Webster Center.
And those are freestanding
and
buildings?
they're freestanding buildings, and
Okay.
and our Longwood Center on Longwood Avenue in the Bronx. Those are 2 community centers, and then we have 3 school-based sites that are primarily made up of young people who are already attending those schools.
And those schools are in what neighborhoods, just so we know?
They're all in the South Bronx.
All in the South Bronx. People should go to the website and go to the website and find
Go to palnyc.org and have a listing of our schools. We'll be opening summer registration in the next couple of weeks. We want to keep our young people busy, off the street, engaged. So look for a PAL site or another after-school site, and a summer provider.
You know, I was going to say, give me the best example of somebody who went through the programs and then is doing well. He's sitting right. that was pretty easy. He's right here. Well, good luck to you and all
Thank
the
you.
folks at Police Athletically. Thanks to all the cops and NYPD that believes in it so strongly for 100 years. And for you, what's next? We're just going to be fighting for that funding. That sounds like the main
We're
thing.
fighting for restoration of those funds, and we know we're going to get it because
There you
our
go.
young people are important.
There you go. Young people are more than important. Thank you so much, Carlos
Thank you.
Velasquez from the Police Athletic League. Kate Connoly, say hello to all my friends over there at UNH.
Hello.
And that will do it for all of us. We want to thank our producer, Rebecca Hemick. Our director is Will Guzman. We have a cast of thousands working with us here in the studio, and of course to you too. Next week, we'll get the inside on the Metro North stations coming to the Bronx with the director of the Department of City Planning and a rep from the MTA. So, if the curtain don't fall and the creek don't rise, we'll be here. We'll see you next week. Good night.